My name is Jerelle Jesse, and I'm a research associate at the Gulf of Maine Research Institute. I'm a quantitative research associate, so I'm an expert in fishery science and statistical modeling and population dynamic modeling. Marine biodiversity is the variety of living things in the ocean, and so that can be anything from small organisms like periwinkles all the way to large ones like bluefin tuna. The Maine Department of Marine Resources goes out on a research boat and collects the data. Then they give it to me, and I'm the one who sits at the computer and calculates the different marine biodiversity indices. One way that I measure marine biodiversity is using species richness, and that just means counting the number of different species that you find. So if I caught 5 lobster, that would count as one species toward species richness, even though the abundance or number of individuals is 5. So another metric that I can use to measure marine biodiversity is species evenness. And so that can account for the abundance of different species. So if I had 5 cod and 5 lobster, that would be high species evenness because the different species have an equal abundance. Versus if I caught 9 lobster and 1 cod, then that would be low species evenness because the 2 species have an unequal number. It's important to use more than one metric when you're talking about marine biodiversity because you could miss the big picture if you're only using one of these 2 metrics. So for my research, I focused on Maine coastal waters over the last 20 years. And so I calculated trends in species richness and species evenness, which just means having a pattern over the years. And so for species richness, we saw a decrease in that trend, which just means that there were less unique species over time. And then for species evenness, we also saw a decreasing trend, which just means that at the beginning of the time series, the abundance of different species was more similar, and they became less and less equal over time. Once I found changes in marine biodiversity, I wanted to know what could be causing those changes. And so I first looked to climate change because climate change is a potential driver of changes in marine biodiversity. And that can be through things like species distribution movements, where species that aren't normally in the Gulf of Maine waters might move into those waters to find cooler waters than where they used to live. To look at climate change as a driver of marine biodiversity, I compared the trends in water temperature to the trends that I calculated in marine biodiversity and compared them using statistical models. And so what we found was that water temperature is a contributing factor to changes in marine biodiversity. And this is important because marine biodiversity is an indicator of a healthy and functioning ecosystem. And it's also important to understand how these marine communities are changing and what to expect under predicted future climate scenarios so that we can better manage Maine's marine resources.